We begin in silence, inside a dusty Viennese library, dimly lit. Tucked away in the back, behind volumes of accepted psychoanalysis, sits a locked drawer. Untouched, forgotten, but not by accident. It held Freud's most dangerous research, private lectures, forbidden case files, documents he refused to publish, not because they were false, but because they were too true. One case shattered everything we thought we knew. A woman, elegant, adored, who destroyed every man she touched. Not through rage, not through cruelty, but through emotional gravity so potent it left them begging to be devoured. And Freud didn't blame her. He said she was just acting out a pattern buried too deep to see. This isn't a video about female manipulation. It's about what manipulates her. The subconscious mechanisms behind why women chase, test, vanish, and never explain. Because here's the truth. Most men chase women without ever knowing what they're running toward, or what ancestral machinery they're waking up inside her. You've been told to love unconditionally, to be kind, to be stable, to prove yourself worthy. But what if those were the very traits that turned female desire off? Freud believed the female mind wasn't emotional or chaotic. It was ancient, predictable, algorithmic, and the men who understood that became unforgettable. The rest were devoured without ever knowing why. A marble estate, gilded mirrors, lace gloves, and behind them, a woman Freud called the wolf girl of Vienna. To the world, she was elegance, composure, grace. But to the men who loved her, she was a slow, beautiful disaster. She would seduce with warmth, then vanish without a trace. Return, withdraw, test, shatter, and every man swore they could fix her. Every man failed. Freud didn't judge her. He studied her, and what he discovered in her behavior changed the way he understood the female psyche forever. Society lied to you about women. Most men are taught to decode women through logic. If I treat her well, she'll stay. If I stay consistent, she'll feel safe. If I'm patient enough, she'll choose me. But Freud knew what modern society buried. Logic does not guide female behavior, and consistency, it often repels her, because the male brain craves linearity. The female psyche, Freud argued, is narrative. She doesn't just want safety, she wants story. And safety without tension becomes boredom. She wants the castle, but she also wants to feel like it might burn down. The pattern she learned early Freud traced the wolf girl's chaos, not to malice, but to modeling. At 6 years old, she watched her mother destroy her father, not with yelling, with silence, with late arrivals, with unpredictable affection, with the subtle art of making him feel unsure every day. And the girl learned, this is how power works, not through strength, but through emotional leverage. Freud wrote, women are not born manipulators. They're trained by what they survive. What the mother modeled, the daughter memorized. And this pattern, repeated across generations, becomes invisible training. She learns, to be adored is to be worshipped. To be worshipped is to be in control. And control is the only safe place. Why most men are doomed from the start, here's the trap. Most men try to win her with stability. They're reliable, kind, emotionally available. And then they're confused when she starts pulling away. They think they failed. In truth, they succeeded in making themselves predictable. Freud's suppressed thesis was brutally honest. The female unconscious is in conflict. It craves protection, but it is aroused by unpredictability. Not chaos for chaos' sake, but the threat of chaos. The man who can provide safety while remaining untamed triggers something ancestral in her. She doesn't want the man who kneels. She wants the one who could leave, but chooses not to. She doesn't want guaranteed affection. She wants earned attention, because craving, not receiving, is what feeds desire. The forgotten map Freud called it a psychological war between her inner child and her inner queen. One wants to be protected. The other wants to conquer the protector. Most men only offer one side of that equation. They're either tyrants or servants. She wants neither. What she desires is a man who understands tension, not drama, narrative polarity, the emotional rhythm that makes her heart race. The contrast between steel and softness, a presence that cannot be dominated, but chooses intimacy anyway. If you only give her peace, she will manufacture storms, because inside her is a map, buried deep, written in shadows, and the man who reads it doesn't follow logic. He follows instinct sharpened by perception. She says she wants love. She says she wants stability, affection, and emotional safety. But what Freud discovered in the quiet corners of his most controversial notes was this: what a woman says she wants is often not what her unconscious craves. And once you understand the split between what she says and what she responds to, you'll begin to see the world with terrifying clarity. The illusion of love. Freud spent years studying cases that didn't make sense. Aristocratic women leaving secure, devoted husbands for criminals, poets, gamblers. Women who should have chosen love and loyalty, but instead fell for instability and volatility. The most famous? A duchess in 1904 who abandoned her noble fiancé weeks before the wedding. Why? Because a violinist passed her a note in a candlelit concert and vanished. Freud wasn't interested in gossip. He was interested in what this said about the female unconscious. He came to a conclusion that stunned even his closest colleagues. Love is not the goal of the feminine psyche. Polarity is. Dopamine, danger, and the drama loop. Modern neuroscience confirms what Freud suspected. Controlled unpredictability. When a man is selectively available, when his attention fluctuates just enough, activates dopamine systems far more intensely than constant affection. A 2012 University of Texas study revealed that women are 52% more likely to engage romantically with men who exhibit controlled unpredictability. Not chaos, not violence. Controlled tension. That it's not about being cruel. It's about creating a reality that she can't fully predict. And the more unpredictable the experience, the more the brain craves it. Now apply that to human behavior. She's not addicted to him. She's addicted to how he makes her feel about herself. The paradox of the good man. Here's the trap. When a man offers total emotional security, always available, always kind, always validating, he believes he's giving her what she wants. But what Freud uncovered, and what modern psychology confirms, is that this overcommitment removes tension from the relationship. That in no friction, no polarity, no edge. And without those, her nervous system flatlines. You become emotionally predictable, and the unconscious mind hates predictability. It equates it with boredom, and boredom with danger. Because in evolutionary psychology, boredom means vulnerability. If nothing is happening, your brain assumes the threat is near. So it seeks stimulation. Women who feel too safe will often subconsciously create emotional risk. That's why she picks fights when things are calm. That's why she tests your boundaries when you've done nothing wrong. That's why she retreats just when you think you're getting closer. She's not broken. She's responding to a script written into her biology. The mistake most men make, most men take this personally. They double down, try harder, give more. But Freud warned, the more a man tries to win her, the more he reveals the hole in his own soul. Because what she feels isn't your love, it's your need. The unconscious reads need as weakness, and weakness cannot create polarity. She doesn't want to feel like your savior. She wants to feel your strength. And strength, in the Freudian sense, isn't about aggression or alpha posture. It's about self-possession. The man who can walk away at any moment, without drama, without explanation, becomes her fixation. Because he represents polarity, a center of emotional gravity she can't control, but it's not cruel. It's contrast. This doesn't mean be distant for no reason. This doesn't mean emotionally neglect her. IT means you create psychological contrast. Give warmth, then space. Engage, then pull back. Show depth, then become unreadable. Because the mind that is never fully satisfied never stops seeking. And when you become the source of that emotional ambiguity, you don't just hold her attention. You own it. Polarity over love. Tension over consistency. Presence without submission. This is not game. This is biology. And the man who understands this doesn't chase her love. He becomes the one story she can't stop rewriting in her head. There are two kinds of attraction. The one you think she feels and the one she can't explain but obeys. Freud called it the shadow circuit. Not about logic, not about looks. It's about what you unconsciously trigger inside her nervous system without saying a word. The Case of the Countess and the Stable Boy in Freud's 1901 notes, a scandal-haunted Viennese high society. A titled countess left her powerful husband for an illiterate, emotionally distant stable boy. Why? The husband loved her openly, gave her everything. The stable boy didn't care, disappeared for days, barely noticed her, and that indifference burned her alive. Freud concluded she was not drawn to him. She was drawn to the version of herself she became in his absence. Enter the shadow circuit, Freud's most disturbing theory. Women don't fall for men. They fall into states, psychological patterns that bypass their conscious reasoning. The shadow circuit is activated not by kindness or devotion, but by contrast, mystery, emotional volatility. The man who gives too much, he becomes a utility. Predictable, processed. The man who leaves gaps, he becomes a myth. The men she remembers are the ones she couldn't fully figure out. This isn't manipulation. It's recognition of a primal truth. The female unconscious craves storylines. And a man who offers no tension writes himself out of the plot. Her tests aren't accidental. Freud was ruthless in his honesty. He noticed a pattern across hundreds of female patients. They tested the men they desired. Not consciously, but instinctively. Small withdrawals, sudden distance, emotional spikes. They weren't cruelty, they were probes. Subconscious questions. Will he break? Will he chase? Will he remain himself? A man who loses himself in pursuit fails the test. A man who stays anchored, who doesn't flinch, triggers something ancestral, because emotional chaos is the arena. And most men aren't strong enough to survive it. Controlled distance, not cruelty, Freud warned. Too much affection offered too early collapses the circuit. Why? Because the psyche recognizes ease as weakness. And ease doesn't elevate you in her unconscious hierarchy, it flattens you. This isn't about being cold. It's about maintaining polarity. It's about becoming a gravitational force, not through effort, but through emotional sovereignty, because what she really wants is to collide with a presence she can't bend. A man who listens deeply but reveals nothing. A man who holds space but never chases closure. That's what unlocks the shadow circuit. Not what you give, but what you hold back without apology. And once she enters that loop where her own emotional highs and lows become linked to your presence, you're no longer just a man. You become an internal archetype, the one she'll compare every future lover to, the one who haunts her when she's alone, the one she says she shouldn't want, but can't stop wanting. That's the man the world never teaches you to become. But Freud warned, once awakened, the shadow circuit does not close easily. Some men give everything: loyalty, affection, stability. They think consistency is love. But Freud, long before modern neuroscience, uncovered a disturbing truth. What makes her feel safe rarely makes her addicted. Because in the unconscious mind, love isn't about peace. It's about tension. And the most powerful emotional addictions? They're built on intermittent attention. Freud's case. The poet and the opera singer in 1905, Freud documented a soprano celebrated across Europe, elegant, disciplined, adored. Yet she risked everything, her career, her reputation, even her fortune, to chase a penniless poet. That he wasn't romantic. He wasn't loyal, but he was unpredictable. Some weeks he praised her with poetry. Other weeks he disappeared without a word. She confessed, "When he's near, I feel alive. When he's gone, I feel like I'm dying." Freud's diagnosis: intermittent reinforcement. The science behind obsession. Fast forward a century. Harvard neuroscientists confirmed what Freud witnessed. In 2014, a study showed that unpredictable rewards light up the brain's dopamine centers more than consistent ones. Slot machines. Toxic relationships. Sudden praise. Sudden distance. It's not the affection that becomes addictive. It's the pattern, the emotional whiplash. Predictability is safe, but she'll never crave what she can predict. Her nervous system isn't falling for you. It's falling for the rhythm you create. Warmth, withdrawal, challenge. They're the reason nice guys fail. Not because they're good, but because their presence becomes noise, like background music at a grocery store. Always there, never noticed, but the man who understands emotional rhythm, the warmth when least expected, the silence that creates ache, the push that challenges her softness, he becomes a chemical imprint. Not just a person, an experience. Dopamine isn't a feeling. It's a hook. Freud didn't frame this as manipulation. He framed it as biological leverage. Once her emotional brain associates you with the unpredictable highs of pleasure and the ache of absence, you become her nervous system's obsession. That it's not about cruelty. It's about being unmetabolizable. She can't relax into you because she's always trying to decode you. And that decoding loop creates compulsion. Just like a gambler doesn't love the machine, he loves the unknown. She doesn't just love the man, she loves what he awakens. The protocol isn't a game. It's a pattern. Here's what most men get wrong. They think attention is always good. They think more communication equals more intimacy. But once your energy becomes predictable, it loses weight. The addiction protocol demands mastery. Speak with intention. Withdraw with purpose. Let her miss you. Let silence be felt. She doesn't need more from you. She needs to wonder what's next. That's the edge. That's the chemistry Freud warned us about. Because if you can rhythmically stir her anticipation, you become her unfinished sentence, her unresolved emotion, her biological cliffhanger. And in that loop, you're not chasing her. She's chasing the next hit of you. Freud once suggested that the most magnetic men are not those who offer pleasure, gifts, or declarations of love, but those who fundamentally alter a woman's experience of herself. This is emotional alchemy, the ability to transform someone not through comfort, but through contrast. You don't seduce by validating her image. You seduce by disrupting it strategically. Case study: The Sculptor and the Muse in 1909. Freud treated a famous Viennese artist whose lovers all shared one thing in common. They abandoned stable lives for a man who offered them no security, no future, but unfiltered intensity. He didn't flatter them. He confronted them. One woman, a wealthy heiress, said, "With other men, I felt admired. With him, I felt dangerous." That is the secret. She doesn't want to be seen as she is. She wants to become what she's never dared to be. And the man who sparks that becomes unforgettable. This isn't about being a tyrant. It's about being a mirror, not of her beauty, but of her unused power. Modern Confirmation, a 2018 study in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, confirmed it. The deepest emotional bonds are formed not with those who are familiar, but with those who expand the self-concept. In simple terms, we attach to the people who change us. Techniques of alchemy. Challenge without cruelty. She says she wants to start a business. You say, then why are you wasting time pretending you're not brilliant? You've just exposed her self-sabotage. Without demeaning her, disrupt her patterns. If she's used to being chased, withdraw. If she's used to being praised, go silent. Let her confront her own reactions. Anchor her growth to you when she levels up emotionally or spiritually while around you. Without you overtly taking credit, you become tied to that internal progress. And no one abandons the source of their own expansion. The unforgettable man is not the most attractive. He's the most catalytic. She doesn't stay for comfort. She stays for the feeling she's becoming someone rare because of you. And once she believes you're the architect of her transformation, you don't just occupy her heart, you rewire her soul. There's a moment, silent, uncelebrated, irreversible, when a woman's attachment to a man is no longer emotional. It becomes biological. Freud called it psychosexual imprinting. He documented it in a private case, so extreme it was hidden from the public. A woman, educated, elegant, deeply self-aware, who became physically ill when separated from a man she openly claimed to despise. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, but she kept returning, not because she wanted to, but because her body did. Freud didn't frame this as weakness. He called it what it was, the threshold, the point at which desire bypasses logic and becomes compulsion. The neuroscience behind it, modern studies confirm what Freud feared to publish. When a woman experiences a sequence of emotional peaks and valleys, dopamine from anticipation, oxytocin from closeness, cortisol from emotional distance, the brain begins to anchor that entire loop to a person. This is not romantic chemistry. This is neurological circuitry. A 2016 Yale study found that women who experience tension, confusion, and emotional payoff in the early stages of a relationship form stronger long-term attachments than those who experience consistent, stable affection. Why? Because the intensity of emotional memory isn't based on comfort. It's based on unpredictability. You're not just giving her memories. You're giving her identity. At this stage, she doesn't just remember you. She begins to feel like herself through you. And that's the secret. Obsession isn't born from pleasure. It's born from emotional contrast, identity shift, and a feeling of personal transformation, all wrapped in a body she can't stop craving. The formula of irreversible imprinting. Unpredictability. Do not let your presence become a pattern. If she expects a call, break it. If she expects withdrawal, surprise her with intimacy. The nervous system thrives on what it can't predict. Emotional charge, every encounter must trigger something. Laughter, frustration, challenge, comfort. Be the man who can take her through 3 emotions in one night. Because routine is forgettable, but contrast is addictive. Personal evolution, she must feel like she's growing near you. If she feels more powerful, more sensual, more alive, she doesn't just want you. She needs the version of herself that only appears in your presence. This is why some women return to men they should leave. Why they stay awake thinking about someone who barely said a word. Why they feel pulled, not by logic, but by the echoes of identity left behind. You didn't just touch her. You reprogrammed her nervous system. That's not love. That's the threshold. Once crossed, the bond isn't a choice. It's a biological echo. And if you understand this, you won't chase. You'll calibrate, because obsession is not given. It's engineered. Seduction is power. But if you're not careful, it becomes a trap. Freud's final warning wasn't about women. It was about you. To master the map is to awaken power, but to chase validation through it is to drown in it. This chapter isn't about how to get women anymore. It's about how to protect yourself after you've figured them out. Because once you learn how to provoke attraction, inspire obsession, and activate the unconscious triggers, you'll start to see a new danger, the craving to be chosen. The real threat, your own need to be needed. Powerful men don't fall because they're weak. They fall because they're exhausted from proving they aren't. You can learn every tactic, every psychological nuance. But if your soul still needs approval, you'll surrender everything to the first woman who mirrors your wounds. Freud saw this repeatedly in his patients. Men who could conquer rooms, lead armies, build empires, but collapsed in the hands of emotionally erratic women. Not because she was special, but because he needed to feel special through her. Never give your soul to someone who doesn't even understand their own desires. If you play in chaos, you will become it. And if you become her therapist, her emotional sponge, her chaos cleaner, you will lose the very presence that once captivated her. Protecting your emotional terrain, you don't just guard your wallet. You guard your aura. Here's how. Test her for chaos before giving emotional access. Observe her nervous system. Is she grounded? Does she create unnecessary tension? Does she seek conflict for connection? A woman addicted to chaos will destroy peace and call it passion. Learn to spot that early. Enforce your standards with stillness. You don't have to argue. You don't need to justify. Your absence will teach what your lectures never will. Distance is discipline. Use it without apology. Reward peace, not drama. Most men reward emotional volatility with more attention. Flip the pattern. When she's grounded, present, feminine, give her everything. When she's erratic, testing, manipulative, give her nothing. Let her calibrate to your emotional frequency. The man who cannot say no will always be ruled by women who can. Sovereignty begins with non-reactivity. It is not coldness. It's clarity that you're not punishing her. You're protecting yourself. Because a man who knows how to awaken a woman, but doesn't know how to guard his own center, will eventually collapse into the very chaos he once controlled. From seduction to sovereignty, this is the final evolution that you're no longer asking. How do I get her? You're asking, is she worthy of the energy I've spent years mastering? Because if your presence brings peace, depth, clarity, then your time isn't given freely. It's earned. And here's the haunting truth Freud left unspoken. The most dangerous seduction is needing to be loved more than you love your own peace. This week, stop chasing her words. Start observing her patterns. Say less. Watch more. Withdraw with power, not pain. If this video shattered something false inside you, good. That means it worked. Comment the line that hit you hardest. Share this only with men who are ready to stop being ruled by confusion. And subscribe, not to consume, but to awaken. Because the most dangerous advantage isn't manipulation, it's clarity. And now, you can't unsee the map.